Okay, thanks for joining me. We're going to install Git Bash today. Oh, sorry, Git for Windows. Because you're working on Windows and you'd rather be working on Linux. You need a Linux terminal. And Git for Windows is the best way of delivering that. So I'll just search for Git. As you can see, I'll take the top one. So this software comes direct from Git SCM. Well, the most authoritative link for Git when I search it. Yeah, I guess GitHub's the next most, which is just a wrapper around Git, sorry. Forward back buttons. Download for Windows. I want to take this one here, which is 64-bit version, the latest. I've already downloaded it because I keep mucking up, but let's go ahead and download it again and click it from here. Alright, I've clicked it. I'm waiting. Here we go. User account control. Do I want this app to make changes to my device? Verified publisher, Johannes Schindalin, Git for Windows. Ticks all the right boxes, so yeah, I'll okay that. And also, we got it from Git SCM, which is like the official site for Git. Big piece of software. Big as in well loved and used and distributed. So I agree to the license, take it or leave it. Default installation, yeah, with 64-bit version, don't need the x86 extension to operating files directory. These defaults are all good. Perhaps it's worth stepping into a few of them in case you have disagreement there. Okay, so Explorer integration in your Explorer Windows. It's your file browser. It means when you right click you get the option to launch a bash terminal wherever you are in your file browser, or a Git GUI, which I don't use because I'm coming from Linux and I know the shell commands. Although I do like PyCharm's take on Git. It shows you the flow and you can navigate the histories more easily than using commands, which are always hard to remember anyway. Yeah, so that might be interesting. I recommend take both of those for sure. Anyway, it doesn't save you any file size. It's 294 installation or a 294 installation. GitLFSS, that used to have its own option page where it tell you what it was all about. So I'm not really sure what it does, but I have been told to enable it when I'm working on large repositories in the Windows shop. By large, I mean multi-gigabyte. And they go wrong. Yeah, so you want stuff enabled, so there's less chance of it going wrong. And if someone's telling you to clone something on Windows, this will be the software you install. This right here, Git for Windows. Associate Git configuration files with the default text editor. I'm hoping that's Notepad. Yeah, otherwise we get to choose that later, I'm pretty sure. But hang on, that's .git. What does that mean, like Git ignore files? Yeah, I guess because the asterisk on the end. Yeah, it asks you about just Git files later. But hang on, what are .git files? I'm pretty sure that we come to that again later. So it's shell files to be run in the bash script. I don't want to run anything but bash, but I'm not sure how comprehensive a Linux environment Git Bash is. Normally I'd have installed, I can't remember the name of it now, but you get to choose all your modules. You just go for your Git, yes, C++ binaries to build your headers, and then you can build some software that you'd normally have to install Linux for. But I don't want to be building software only running it, which means using Linux. So yeah, I'll keep that option because it doesn't cost us anything. Except the association, and files might accidentally be run if well, that's probably the idea, isn't it? And you get to debug them a bit more than you would without that support. Although you could just, yeah, normally if it was an executable, you'd have to type bash and then the name of the shell script you'd pass into it. Okay, so check daily, I don't want to do that. That cost me a lot of time on startup today when Chrome was updating, and I never use Chrome, and it doesn't really give me the option to disable. So I'll disable that. There's the default anyway. Okay, add a Git Bash profile to Windows Terminal. I'd recommend taking that if you had Windows Terminal. Nice integrated solution there, but I don't see myself using Command or PowerShell, so I don't have Windows Terminal. But it just unites all three of those together under one window. Okay, so there's a new Git scaler. This is new to me. Git add-ons manage large scale repositories. I thought large file support managed large scale repositories. Oh yes, this is lots of small files, which I probably don't want to unpack. Okay, so we'll take that anyway. I don't know what it does, and I don't really work on that large scale of repositories, not at home. And even when I did, I didn't have that. And I'm not sure it was large scale, it was just lots of large files, which is why people kept blaming large file support, saying, yeah, we've got large file support turned on. So anyway, this is another thing they'll blame you for if you don't have it turned on, so I recommend taking that. Select start menu folder. Yeah, I want a start menu folder. I don't want a desktop folder. That's clutter. I want to use Vim as well because I'm only going to be working from the bash shell. But if I was going to be using bash from other shells, which is an option I'll come to in a minute, then I wouldn't expect bash to function in those shells. I don't know what would happen here. Perhaps it would fire up a whole new shell to run Vim because I don't have Vim installed, you see. So I'm assuming that Git Bash is providing it. So what I'd choose if I was using other shell scripts, scripting languages, like PowerShell and Command, is I'd use Notepad. It's Git's default editor. What does it mean by Git's default editor? Because we were looking at use the default editor for .git asterisk on the initial selection tick box. So if you had a change, a commit, or something that you squashed and rebased and it was asking you for a new merge message, it would fire up this window, and that wouldn't be associated with a .git asterisk file. Yes, that's why I'm sticking with Vim. But yeah, Notepad's a good option. I used to use Notepad++, but it kept saving everything to disk, and it had sensitive information in a disk that I might not be in possession of in a few days, and then I didn't want to do that. So I don't recommend Notepad++ anymore. Right, it says it's a lot of hard work, blah, 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 red notes. And if you look at Notepad, it says new, red, which it isn't. It's been there for 2 years. Use Vim. Yes, well, I'll use Vim because I can demonstrate it, perhaps. I'll see if that pops up later. Anyway, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Adjusting the name of the initial branch in your repository. So let Git decide. The default branch name is master. I don't really create new repositories locally anymore. I create them on GitHub because it's less work, and then I just pull them rather than having to push them and tell GitHub all about them from that perspective. GitHub wants to be treated like it's in charge, so I create my new repositories in GitHub and then just clone them down to my shell. So this doesn't much matter because I'm using master in GitHub still. This doesn't much matter to me, but if you're creating these locally, perhaps not using GitHub, perhaps using your DevOps or something, then it does matter to you. But anyway, it's saying it's currently master, or I could hard code it here so it never changes. Not until I change it. Okay, let Git decide. Sounds alright. So yeah, it's not going to be deciding for me. Okay, adjusting my path environment. Do I want to use Git from Git Bash only, or do I want to use Git from the command line and third-party software like PowerShell and command prompt? Yeah, they're the options. And also third-party software, which I'm not really sure of. The option that only adds minimal wrappers to your path. Oh, it's recommended. So we'll probably take this one. So it just means you can do Git from anywhere, which is why I was using Notepad as my default Git editor, because I don't expect that Vim will be available from anywhere unless we do this command, use Git and optional Unix tools from command prompt. By command prompt, they mean PowerShell and command prompt, I guess. But no, command prompt is capitalized, so they probably do mean just command prompt. So let's keep it simple and do all our Git work from Bash. Oh no, you can do Git work from anywhere, but you only have Git on your third-party shells. That's the default. So what they're saying here is that you get all the options above too, because you don't just want to use it from command prompt, you want to use it from Git Bash. It's the whole idea of installing Git in Git Bash is that you have a Bash environment. But Git's good too. And you probably don't even need it to pop up that Vim editor that I was alluding to earlier. It could be a Notepad editor, which is what I defaulted to if I was using third-party software like command prompt PowerShell. Yeah, it's just going to be convenient to be able to Git add and Git commit where you're changing your code from, or testing your code with command prompt and PowerShell scripts to test. Okay, right, so we go for the default there. Okay, choose the SSH executable. Use the bundled one. It comes with Git, so that sounds good. It sounds like Linuxy. OpenSSH. Yeah, I don't want to be denied access to stuff, and I don't want to have to install PuTTY, and I don't know if Windows has anything available unless we install PuTTY. I think you've actually got a decent SSH shell in Windows these days. You don't have to install PuTTY, but let's just use the bundled one because that's new. Maybe buggy, maybe more buggy or less tested and documented. Alright, using HTTPS transport backend. I'm going to use the OpenSSL library. Yeah, it sounds Linuxy. Or do I use native Windows secure channel? That doesn't even sound like an SSL library. Yeah. So, use validation via internal root CA certificates, which are distributed via e.g. Active Directory domain services, which if you're working for a corporation, they probably lock down their intranet, a local network, which you VPN into to use Active Directory domain services, or they could use Azure Active Directory, which is probably another example we could fit in there. Yeah, internal root CA certificates. So if you need to log onto a corporate network, you might want to be using this. When I git clone, I'm trying to think where this will be relevant. It's when you git clone. So when you do HTTPS, it will need an SSL library, so it will be relevant there. But when you do another sort of git clone, when you go into GitHub, you have the options between HTTPS or SSH or a zip file. So this covers the HTTPS option, and I think the previous screen was about SSH, which would have covered the default. You need one of these, and I'd just go with that one because I like Linux. Just contracting, and they're not going to let you in with the SSH. And they might let you in with this, but there might be errors too. And you probably want to do that. The Windows secure channel, if they're Windows centric, and most companies are for their intranets. Okay, so I'm using that because that's what I'm used to in Linux, and it's the default. I won't have access to any Active Directory domain services to validate me, so I can't really test it, sorry. Configuring the line ending conversions. You got 2 commit Unix styles, so that makes it seem like the default obvious, and also it is the default. It makes it seem like the right answer, because 2 for commit Unix style, 1 for commit as is, nothing for commit Windows style. So that's a heavy hint that we should be committing Unix style. Right, do we want to check out Windows style or check out as is? And the difference here is if your tool supports as is, you might want to do that. Like, I know all my tools do. I know PyCharm does. You might get some errors in translation with Notepad or even WordPad or native Windows apps if you don't check out Windows style. So let's just check out Windows style, and I'll let you find those errors out if you want to be adventurous and check out as is. Configure the terminal emulator to use Git Bash. Okay, so I use min-tty, it's the default. Okay, so we're using min-tty, not Windows default console. Choose default behaviour of Git pull. I just want the default behaviour that I have on Linux, thank you very much. Any other fast forwards? I don't want to read base, that sounds dangerous. Only other fast forward. What they're saying here is the default is if you were on a branch that's been updated upstream and you git pull, it will attempt to merge it there and then, and it'll say if there's any merge conflicts, and it'll say it's failed, and it'll resolve the merge conflicts. And I'd just rather that happened as part of an explicit merge rather than a git pull, because I know how to complete a merge. You just make manual edits until you're happy with the merge, and you're still working in your own code base. Anyway, we'll keep that as the default. To use the credential helper, I've had to open up this page to learn more about it because I'm sure that this was new and there were other options. So let me just show you the other page. So I open that link and get Credential Manager. I'll just make sure I'm on the right bit. Okay, so how does this relate to Git Credential Manager for Windows, Git Credential Manager for Mac and Linux? Well, the one for Windows is net-based. The one for Mac and Linux is Java-based. It's good to see the exact equivalence of those two there. I believe they are the same. .NET is the Microsoft version of Java. That's what I believe. Although they've probably diverged a lot since I formed that assumption. Okay, both these products aim to solve the same problem, which is providing seamless modifier HTTPS authentication. We talked about that before, haven't we, with OpenSSL libs. And they're based on different code bases, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this new one, GCM, aims to replace both of them with a unified code base. They don't tell me if it's Java. Maybe they do if I cared enough, if it's Java or .NET. Or completely independent and scratch-built and efficient. Compiled. They don't tell me that. Okay, I don't care. I don't need to know. Okay, so does this mean that GCM for Windows is deprecated? Yes. Does this mean that the Java-based GCM for Linux is deprecated? Yes. I want to use SSH. GCM is only useful for HTTPS-based remotes. It supports SSH out of the box. You shouldn't need something else. To use SSH, please follow the below links. Azure DevOps GitHub Bitbucket. So there you go. You get 3 main repositories. I missed off Bitbucket when I mentioned DevOps. Okay, so back to the installer window. Okay, so yeah, there used to be a third option here on this installer to use one of those deprecated ones. But I think they told me it was deprecated anyway at the time. They totally removed that option now. I'd go with don't use a credential helper. I like to manage my credentials manually, explicitly. Right then. Okay, configuring extra options. Which feature would you like to enable? File system caching provides significant performance boost. Git never needed it. Well, it did actually, I was saying, but that was only because I was pulling huge files, so I never needed a performance boost. And then it's just the disk bottlenecking or the network bottlenecking. Okay, file system data will be read in bulk and cached in memory. An operation, so they're just giving up some of your RAM as a cache where you haven't got it on the disk. So I was like, but anyway, take that for nothing. Not that I need a boost. Enable symbolic links. So I had to look this up. Anyway, I read up on this. I've got the link open in the browser tab if you want to see it, or just click it yourself. So it requires SE create symbolic link permission, but you get this in modern versions of Windows 10. I don't know when that article was published, but by modern, I mean, by the time you watch this video, it will be modern only because Windows updates itself all the time. I mean, mine was installed a year ago, but I'm pretty sure it's up to date still, the modern Windows 10. As long as you've got Windows 10, I don't think you need to do the SE create symbolic link permission. That's, oh, hang on, let's just open the window. Maybe I have missed one of the finer details here, which is, you need to have an administrator account. Let's just get to that section. It's not my default browser, that's why I had to store this link. I was open, you can see it in Edge, it's my default browser. So there's support for symbolic links, support, and these aren't your grandfather's Linux symbolic links. What? Dissing Linux people for people. Okay, so there's been support, but it doesn't mean that they work. You might have to do stuff to make that support active. Right, symbolic links are only available on Vista and later, not on XP. You need that privilege, which is by default assigned only to administrators. So if you've got an administrator account, which I do, I just have to go through UAC still, but I don't have to log in as someone else. So my account's pretty powerful. If you own your own computer, you've probably got an administrator account, which is used by default. I don't know. I don't get into Microsoft authentication because it doesn't tend to get used on the shared systems I use. Anyway, I'm going to assume I'm an administrator. I could just check that, I guess. Go to settings, home, right, my local account. Where do I find it? Accounts. I click on accounts. Oh yeah, I'm a local account. I am administrator. So you might find that you're already administrator here, which means that you've got that privilege assigned by default. Symbolic links and remote file systems disabled by default. Right, this is Git. It's a distributed version control system, so it wouldn't be a remote file system that you were linking to. Symbolic links only work with NTFS. Well, we'll all be using NTFS. If we've got Windows 10, no one uses FAT anymore. Don't know about XFAT, but no, NTFS is the modern version. Has been since Windows 2000. Windows symbolic links are typed. Git will update the type when it finds a directory changes to a file or vice versa. Alright, when does symbolic links change from being a directory to a file? When someone has got them wrong to begin with. So yeah, okay, that just says they work. I think it's, yeah, that's okay. Many programs do not understand symbolic links. Well, Windows programs maybe. Okay, back to the installer. Okay, do I want to enable symbolic links? Yeah. This is Windows. I mean, I'll never use them because I don't deal with large binary files. I like to craft my code carefully by hand. Spend way too long on it. Very unproductive. Configuring experimental options. These features are developed actively. Would you like to try them? Enable experimental support for pseudo consoles. Node and Python, but it still has known bugs. I'm pretty sure you don't need that, and I will attempt to show you Python running in the default min-tty console, and it runs better with a Windows command shell rather than a min-tty shell. That's what they were saying earlier. I'm not getting back to that though. Enable experiment. It doesn't even tell you you've done this page before. Enable experimental built-in file system monitor. I don't like file system monitors. Not myself. I'll check the file if it needs checking. They can lead to inefficiencies and stuff. It's experimental. In its Windows, it's not a server, so I'm not going to be monitoring stuff, but it makes operations such as git status, git add, and git commit. What does it do? It speeds those up, yeah, because it monitors them for changes. But I don't notice, not that I work on Windows much, I don't notice that being a bottleneck, particularly not in Linux. In Windows, would it be a bottleneck? I use Windows so little, I can say, yeah, so by all means go for that. It doesn't warn you that it's got bugs or anything, so you can go for that. But I find they're costly. File system watchers are they're not without overheads, so you could have excess disk writes, or reads rather, or even writes if it's caching that information in a summary format somewhere. Yeah, so I'm not doing that. Anyway, that's it. We're done now. That's the last of the options. Oh, I just watched the names of those files go by. Don't want to view release notes, but I do want to launch a shell. See if I can show you anything. Okay, right. So here's the shell. And if I type Python, what's it going to do? It's going to take me to the Microsoft Store and ask me to install Python. Well, if I type which Python, so we have got a Python here, I just have to reference it explicitly. Let's see that. And now, even though I have got Python installed, it still takes me to the Windows Store. Right, let's try Vim. We got Vim.